Ready to go?
Yep, we're ready.
Welcome to our media briefing and welcome to those who are watching over the internet or listening over the internet. This is day 44. We've appreciated the many days we've spent with you, and there's only one day left, and we'll miss you when it's over. So we're working through House bills. Let's see, what else did we do this morning on the floor? We're working through fiscal note bills from the House, and the Senate's working on our fiscal note bills. We'll have working on the finalizing the bill of bills tomorrow, and once that passes, we can adjourn sine die at that point because we've done all the work we really need to do. But we'll probably stay till a little later tomorrow night and pass more bills. As of now, Senator Henderson, you want to give a report on bills passed?
Let's see here. Oh man, you are putting me on the spot. 275 bills?
375.
375. Okay, 375 bills so far passed the legislature. So we've still got a couple hundred to go. It's like, sorry, I haven't looked at this. I just handed it to you.
And how many were introduced?
We had 304 Senate bills introduced. Only, let's see, 255 of those made it over to the House. And so far they have passed 185 of them. So.
I'm just trying to figure out total number of bills. So if we have 375 that have passed so far out of?
Both bodies. So 185 Senate bills have passed and 195 190 House bills have passed.
A total of 807 bills were introduced to the House and the Senate. Thank you. Any questions?
Do you have a number of files that were open?
I don't on this report.
Wasn't it like 1,000?
1,200. It was 1,200.
1279.
1,279, 1,200,
Around
yeah.
there.
These are just numbered bills.
Mr. President, what do you say to folks that are saying that you're going to raise the gasoline tax this session by lowering the gas?
We're allowing the index to kick in sooner. So we passed a bill 2 years ago to index the gas tax, and we're just moving that rack price down so it kicks in earlier. That was the intent when we passed the bill. But when we passed the bill, what we didn't know is that the bottom would fall out of the oil market and gasoline prices would go through the floor. So we made a conscious decision 2 years ago, because we have major infrastructure needs going forward with a doubling of the population here in Utah. And we knew that we would need to have a vehicle that would incrementally increase the gas tax without us acting, and that's through an index. So it puts the gas tax more on a percentage basis like our income tax is and like our sales tax. So we don't have to come in and consciously raise the additional revenue we got out of the income tax this year because it's based on a percentage. And so that was the concept back 2 years ago. So if the idea is that we're raising gas taxes by lowering this, it really is the legislature 2 years ago that really made that decision. We're just bringing it back to the point where that legislature had left it.
So the formula, though, that was passed 2 years ago was supposed to keep up with inflation, with ups and downs in the rate, and obviously it didn't. Was it flawed? Is that why it has to be?
Well, we passed a bill with a rack price. It's a trigger price that was set at a level where we thought it would start to kick in a year, but oil prices unexpectedly dropped significantly, which gas prices did also. And so all we're doing is lowering that rack price, that trigger price, down to a level so that the index starts to kick in, which we had anticipated 2 years ago.
But when it was passed, it had a floor and a ceiling with the anticipation it would cover, ups and downs in the market. And as you say, prices dropped more than expected. But wasn't that anticipated, that things could go up and down dramatically and the floor and ceiling would keep them in line?
Well, we argued that, but nobody saw the huge increase in oil prices. We didn't anticipate that big of a decrease. The vicissitudes of gas tax or gasoline prices, there are some swings, but not like what we had. That dropped significantly. The only other time oil prices in my lifetime have dropped like that, or at least that I remember, was in 1985, when that devastated the Utah economy because we were so reliant on severance tax and income tax from oil and gas industry. And fortunately, when this drop came upon us, our economy had diversified enough that it was hardly a blip on our revenue radar screen, and we've gotten ourselves off the reliance upon severance tax by creating the endowment, where most of that money now goes into a long-term endowment, which I think is good policy. It's good revenue policy. It's a stable type of issue. Volatility.
My favorite word.
On the budget, how's that shaping up right now, Senator Stevens?
Very good. We're very close to the end.
Whoa.
Oh, we're over. Lunch is ready.
So everything's kind of on track to get funded?
We really are on track. We think that we've done there's been, one good thing is there's been an amazing sense of cooperation between all bodies this year. I think we've had great committees, great appropriations committees, and we've just moved ahead, and we are in I think, a good place right now.
This afternoon, are you expecting the liquor bill to come up?
I am.
Is it going to come up?
I think so. I believe it is. It's right down. It's not too far down on the board, and if we'll
like
make sure that it's
2 down
lifted.
right now.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's lifted. If there's a reason it shouldn't, there will be bills come over that will be lifted. We'll just make sure that we don't lift above that. We'd really like to take care of it today.
So the version, there is a substitute version coming?
Substitute version will be out probably within 15 minutes or so.
And here they told me they wanted you here to talk about budget. What's these alcohol questions about?
I made it clear what I wanted. And I asked
I had a safety inspection questions for Senator Henderson. Can you just explain the differences in the bill? You suggested it was a compromise that made some pretty significant changes to it.
Yeah, it did. So the compromise was we get rid of mandatory vehicle safety inspections, and in exchange, we repeal the sunset provision in the primary offense seatbelt law that's set to expire, I think, next year. So that will just remain in place. A seatbelt has to be worn or you can get pulled over as a primary offense.
So it's permanently a primary offense, not to wear a seatbelt.
Exactly. And the other issue was we raised the vehicle registration fee by $1, and that money goes to pay for highway patrol troopers.
When would that sunset have kicked in otherwise?
Next
Year.
next year,
Yeah.
mid-year, if it wasn't extended.
And how much will that extra dollar raise, do you know?
Well, there are about 2.5 million cars on the road, so about $2.5 million.
And Senator Escamilla feels like that's a milestone in her career in the legislature, but we're not
True.
accepting her resignation or anything like that. So.
That was my very next question.
True. I mean, I think, there were some concerns that were raised. I think I want to echo the comments made by members of the majority caucus about data. They work. It was a bill that was worked really hard to get to the agreement, and you can see our caucus was split on that vote. But for me personally, knowing the data and someone that worked so hard on that seatbelt law for years, I mean, it's not a joke that it's been I think I introduced that bill 7 times or 8 times. But to me, that's the number one reason why people die in our roads. So that was the ultimate win-win for me on this bill, and I think the data was compelling that we can certainly move forward and with this type of policy, and not be putting people at risk in the safety piece.
Remind me, when did that primary seatbelt law pass?
So it was Representative Perry introduced that 2 years ago.
And what, did you feel like there was a real possibility that once it was sunsetted, it might not go again, because it had been so difficult?
Yes, based on my experience, yes. So yeah, this was, like I said, I'm happy with that compromise, and this is what we do here in the legislature, find places where we're not gonna make everyone happy, but it seems to be a good public policy with features, safety features in place, and I think that this bill got to that point, the bill we passed at the Senate, and hopefully the House will accept. I think they're okay with being on board on that.
Well, the studies show that only 2% of accidents are caused by vehicle failure, but 90+% are caused by driver errors of some sort, speeding or aggressive driving, distracted driving, the fatalities
Impaired driving.
are a seatbelt, not wearing a seatbelt. Those are the real dangers on the road. So once we really saw that, it only made sense to say, okay, well, we're going to eliminate a costly, $25 million a year program essentially that doesn't give us any benefit, in order to add measures that will actually improve safety on our roads.
This is sort of a budget question, but I was just wondering if you could assess the legislature's efforts for public education this session.
You want to talk about education
Oh,
funding?
excuse me, I am so sorry, I was,
The highlight
I was soft
is-
on the alcohol already.
Aren't we all?
I'm just asking you to assess the efforts made for public education during the session.
There have been tremendous gains for education. I think we've got, the Education Committee did an amazing job of prioritizing the things that were important. A 4% increase in WPU, total funding for growth. That was all right at the top of the list, and then we went way down the list of the way that they had prioritized those numbers. And I think you'll find as we get into the bill of bills, there may be a few other items that will put us even farther down that list. But now I want to say the number was 239 million.
I can't remember the exact number, but it's significant.
It's a big percentage of our budget has gone to education, more than normal. We usually spend in the state of Utah about 49%. Way over 49% of our new money has gone to education this year.
And that includes higher education also. And, we've been pretty generous with higher ed over the last few years, and especially in the infrastructure that is so essential to those campuses, especially those growth campuses like SLIC and UVU that are in dire need of physical facilities. So, it's a big challenge for us funding those buildings, and it becomes a priority for us every year. Plus, it's one of those political things that people love to fund, funding the building at your university or one that's in your district. But besides all that, it's stuff that we need to do. Our higher ed system is going to have to absorb a lot more students in years to come.
Did you have any thoughts on that, Liz?
Our budget had a 4.5 WPU, but we understand the constraints in the budget. The committee did a really good job, so I'll go back to what was said on the appropriations committees. Were really good in just being very detail oriented, and our caucus felt comfortable with those priorities. So we aligned on most of that stuff. We went a little bit more on the WPU, but we obviously supported that as executive appropriations. We still have some concerns on some of the bills that are coming up that we think that maybe those funds can go to other places, and we would like to see that money going back to the WPU. But we're happy with the 4%. Always want more, but we understand budget constraints.
Senator Stevenson, you had on the list of funded items, the $350,000 for the Federalism Commission and there was also, I think, money for a reading program and bills that were killed, one over here, one over there. Can I have that money, or what are you going to do?
We had a meeting just a few minutes ago and it's all gone.
It's been reallocated.
There was the $350,000 though, in that federalism bill. What will happen to that if that doesn't somehow get revived?
Let me just kind of clarify something. You know, we have, this is the 11th hour, and regardless of what everyone thinks, we do not have to spend everything. So if something comes up at this point in time and we haven't got a very good reason to justify moving it back on the board, it may be wise just to sit and think about it for a while.
That's what I was getting at.
My guess is some of it will be reprioritized, but at least our position here is that we want to leave at least some small change on the table.
And if you really look at that, $350,000 in a $15.23 billion budget is that's really a pretty small
Well,
number.
I asked because I guess the governor had requested $250,000 for air quality monitoring state equipment that didn't get funded. And I've heard that he may have gotten that money.
We think we're going to be able to get it funded.
Senator Escamilla, I know you have been asking about funding for the in-between, the hospice for the homeless. Has anything shaken loose for that?
Not yet. It's not the end of the session yet, so I'm always hopeful, because that's how I live. That's the mantra. But no, the hospice homeless shelter is critical just because it has such a high return on investment, and I think it was kind of like left out of the homeless conversation. I think it should have been part of the whole homeless conversation. We brought that up during the session, but I'm still hopeful. We're still looking for places to find some potential savings, but it will be really moving to a 50-bed site for individuals that have been kicked out of a hospital, so they can be on the emergency. They usually use the emergency room as a place to say they're homeless, but they're close to terminally ill, so close to the end of their lives, and we find this to be a die with dignity, and it really has a high return on investment. So hopefully we can find some place to make sure we have a place where these individuals can be at the end of their life.
How much were you seeking for that?
$850,000. That was the ask.
And I think it's an important ask, actually. And personally, in my opinion, we need to try and figure that out also. And if it doesn't happen this session, I think it should be one of the priorities we should look at next year. And the reason why it probably didn't get the attention it needed to get this session was, I think in all those discussions between the county mayor and the city mayor, and they weren't focused on that
Population.
part of the
population is
and
small.
so not intentionally,
Correct.
it just got left out of that discussion because we were doing good to get where we got dealing with the relocation of sites and so forth. So that was probably one of the big heavy lifts that the legislature did this session.
And on that note, I saw it was moved to the top of, the homeless funding bill was moved to the top of the second reading calendar in the afternoon. How do you think that's going to fare?
It's going to pass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just clarify
There's
this.
support for it
Yeah,
in the Senate.
It's a very small population. We calculate about 65 people a year that will end up in this hospice homeless category. So it's a small population, but they could be very expensive. We don't treat, if they don't have a place to be on those last, 1 week to 6 months of the end of their life. And I think, we're a state that values people's lives and dignity, and there's people that sometimes end up dying on the streets because they don't have a place to go. And those shelter, the regular shelters are not a safe place and a place where they can stay. So it's a very unique group, and I think the president was right. I mean, they probably got, everything that we're dealing with the homeless conversation, but we will definitely keep on working on that population.
And that was just to help them expand, it wasn't an ongoing.
Correct, no, it was just a one-time, correct, for expansion.
We trust Senator Escamilla will not feel that seatbelt primary law sunsets enough for her, and she'll be back
Yes, we
advocating
will
for
be
that,
back.
so.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we'll take one more question, maybe two questions.
We have one from online. One viewer would like to know, is there any chance additional funding could be added to presidential primaries or voting equipment? Both bills were slashed significantly this session.
Yeah, I think it was felt by leadership as we were looking at all that, and of course this is a priority issue, that there needed to be some more work on that, trying to find out what we're really funding. I know that this is going to be a big expense for the state going forward, and we don't have a major election. Well, we have municipal elections this year, but statewide broad elections don't happen. General election doesn't happen until next year, so it's something that, I think that the interim's going to be working on, and we'll see what they can come back with. We need just a substantive proposal so we know what we're going to be funding.
What about the primary election aspect? Is it a $3 million price tag, and you're only funding $100,000 this year under whatever agreement?
It's just the
requires a presidential primary, sorry.
Paid by the state.
We haven't had 100 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They
mean, that's
just
a very small
I really can't
piece.
speak.
I think let's just get the process started.
Yes.
As far as I know, there is no presidential primary in front of us for a couple of years.
Well, but you're putting off, kicking that can down the road.
Well, we are,
right, to
but
find
we're
the
at least
other-
getting a start with it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good time.